Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really interesting idea, the concept of a battle that's being fought every single day. And here's the kicker. According to our source material, the battlefield is your own mind. Okay, so this quote right here from Dr. Charles Stewart really sets the scene. He's talking about this huge spiritual battle. But the most important part, the real takeaway, is that this isn't some far-off abstract thing. No, this is a battle that literally spills over and affects our day-to-day lives. All right, Section 1, a war over your mind. To really get our heads around this, you have to understand the kind of language the source material uses. We're not talking about a small disagreement or a little skirmish. No, this is framed as a full-on war. And look at this. The language is really intense, right? The source points to the Apostle Paul, and he describes this whole thing as an ongoing military campaign. He talks about having weapons of our warfare, tearing down fortresses, and even taking thoughts captive, like actual prisoners of war. I mean, this isn't just symbolic fluff. This is the language of a serious strategic conflict. So that leads to a pretty obvious question, doesn't it? If there's a real war going on, with weapons and campaigns and all that, where exactly is it being fought? And the answer is just crystal clear. The source says the #1 battlefield is your mind. It's not happening somewhere out there. The real fight is happening inside your head, in your thoughts, your ideas, and how you reason about things.
Okay, on to our next section, the enemy's ancient strategy. Now we're going to look at how this battle is actually fought. The source lays out a core strategy here, and what's wild is that it's described as being ancient, but still just as effective today. So here's the key thing to understand. The main weapon isn't some kind of brute force attack. It's deception. The whole point is to sneakily influence your thoughts so that, down the line, they can control your decisions and your actions. And get this, the source traces this exact tactic all the way back to the serpent and Eve in the book of Genesis. So yeah, we're talking about an old playbook here. And this strategy, it has two main goals, and they're super clear. First, mess with your faith. Create doubt, shake your trust in God. And the second objective follows right from that. Use that seed of doubt to mess with your obedience to what God says. Now, a huge part of this whole strategy is disguise. I mean, the source is really clear on this. The enemy doesn't just show up looking evil, with horns and a pitchfork. That would be too easy. Instead, he's disguised as an angel of light. And his followers, they look like servants of righteousness. And that camouflage, that disguise, is exactly what makes the deception so powerful. Okay, Section 3, the mind-behavior connection. So this brings up a really good question. Why all this focus on the mind? Why is that the battlefield? Well, it's because the mind is basically the command center for, everything we do. And this slide lays out the chain of events perfectly. See, it all starts with a thought, step 1. That thought then sparks a feeling, step 2. That feeling then pushes you toward a decision, step 3. And finally, that decision leads to your behavior, step 4. It's a straight line from thought to action. So the entire enemy's strategy hinges on that exact chain. The idea is, if you can introduce a deceptive idea way back at step 1, at the thought level, you can ultimately control what happens at step 4, the person's behavior. It's all about controlling the final outcome by messing with the very first step. All right, Section 4, the counterattack plan. So if that's the attack plan, what's the defense? I mean, how do you fight back? Well, the good news is the source doesn't just leave us with the problem. It lays out a really specific, proactive plan for a counterattack. And the heart of this counterattack plan is right here in this quote. That phrase, taking every thought captive, wow, that is a total game changer. It completely flips the script on how we see our thoughts. They're not just random things that happen to us. No, they're things we can, and are supposed to, actively grab a hold of and control. But what does that actually mean, taking thoughts captive? It sounds so intense, right? Well, this military language is intentional. It implies you need to be actively seizing your own thoughts, almost like you're a soldier capturing enemy spies on the battlefield. What it's really calling for is a kind of radical mindfulness. It means you're on guard, actively checking every thought that pops into your head. Nothing gets a free pass. You have to stop each one and measure it against a standard of truth, in this case, the character and heart of Christ, to figure out if it's a friend or an enemy. Because, as the source material warns, an idle mind, that's the perfect workshop for the enemy's deceptive plans.
Okay, Section 5, a three-step defensive strategy. So this all sounds good in theory, but how do we actually do it? How do we apply this in real life? Well, the source breaks it all down into a super practical three-step strategy. And here they are. It's as simple as this: discover, discern, and discard. That's it. This is really the heart of the whole thing, the most practical takeaway for how you can actually start managing your own thought life. And this table breaks it down perfectly. First, you discover. You just bring every single thought out into the open for inspection, no exceptions. Second, you discern. This is where you evaluate it. You put that thought on trial, right? Does it line up with the truth? And third, if it doesn't pass the test, you discard it. You actively throw it out. Now that sounds easy enough, but let me tell you, that last step, discarding, that takes real practice. It's like building a mental muscle. But here's a crucial point. This whole strategy isn't just about playing defense, waiting for bad thoughts to show up. The source makes it clear that the best defense is a good offense. By proactively filling your mind with truth, which in this context means God's word, you stop just reacting to attacks. Instead, you're building up your defenses like a fortress and arming yourself before the battle even begins. And that all leads us to this final, really powerful question. It really boils everything down to a personal choice, doesn't it? Either you will take control of your thoughts, or your thoughts are going to take you captive. There's no middle ground. And according to the source material, one of those two things will happen. The only question left is, which one will it be for you?